What I'm going to see if I can do, in fact, I'm going to, when I talk to him next time, I'm going to charge Stefan with this. Stefan is really good. Maybe you can do the same thing, but he's really good when I can't find PDFs of books. He looks in sites that I don't know exist, and I don't think anybody else does. I'm going to see if he can get PDFs for virtually everything. I already gave you the one for the PHP class. He couldn't find one for that? I've looked. There was a thing online for the other one, for this one. It says that if you filled out all this stuff, okay, but you had to agree to their terms and conditions. And I was halfway through reading it, and I thought, this sounds funky. So what I did was I went out to Google, and I Googled the place. And one guy said, you know, this was basically his review was, my God, don't sign up for this. I've been trying to get out of it for 2 years. They send me stuff. They take money out of my account where they said they wouldn't. So I said, I don't think it's worth getting you that, you know. But you can get Kindle versions of a lot of this stuff. But those are, I think those are Mobi. I don't know exactly what those are, but I don't know if we can look at those on here. I don't know if there's a Mobi to PDF converter. There probably is. So that might be something too. If Kristen would let me get even Kindle versions, if we knew for sure they would convert, I would ask her. I mean, I would put out if I had to for that, and then get reimbursed. I wouldn't care, you know. But we'll see what she says. All right. Before we start it up again, Teresa said, "Is there any homework so far in any classes?" The answer is no. Except what I do want you to do is I want you to go through when you get a chance, and I want you don't have to read a lick, but I want you to look at chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in this book. Those are all the apps we have not done. Chapter 4 is the Twitter searches app. Chapter 5, I think is 5, the Canon app. Flag quiz app. Chapter 6 is the Canon game app. Chapter 7 is Doodles, and Chapter 8 is Address Book. For sure, I want to do the Twitter searches and the Address Book. I'd like to do the Doodles one because it's probably the most animated out of all of them. I have no problem going through and doing all of them as a class, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But at a minimum, that's going to take us 2 weeks, I think, for each app. Maybe I'm wrong, but just the way things tend to go in here, so that would put us into week 10, which would mean you'd have 7 weeks. If that you think is enough time, then let's do it that way. If you look through these and say, you know, the one for chapter 5 is stupid, then we won't do that one. But I'm asking you to take a look at it. Does that make sense? Everybody hear what I said? Did anybody hear what I said? John heard. He's shaking his head. The rest of you heard. All right, so try to look at that for next class, and we'll talk about that. All right. Now, funny thing. When Jeff says something's funny, you think that's because Jeff has a really strange sense of humor. Okay. I even went out and just during the break, I re-downloaded all the PowerPoints. Everyone I tried to bring up did that. I just grabbed these from the site. And I already brought up, when we started, I brought up chapters 1, 2, and 3 for you. I even went back to those. I don't know what the hell's going on. What it could be is almost every time, it didn't do it here for PowerPoint, but for Excel, because I keep all of my stuff that's in here, all the stuff like I did last semester. Those are all for the JavaScript class. That's where they are on YouTube, etc. So I keep all those, and I've started to do them for this semester too. So these are the ones I did yesterday for the .NET. These are the ones I did for the Java, and I got the 2 in here from this morning. All right? I don't know what the heck the problem is, but for some reason it doesn't like anything. That's why I went back and I told it to repair. Well, we can't repair it. Yeah, okay. And that's what I just did. I'm on the P drive right here. So I don't know what the problem is, but somehow there's a problem. Maybe it's one of those things, if I called IT, they'd go just reboot. And it probably would fix it. All right. But what I'd like to do is we won't go for the rest of the class, but let's take a look at the stuff for Chapter 4. Let's kind of walk through Chapter 4 as a class, and then what we'll do next class is we'll start to build it as a class. Does that make sense? Okay? You don't have to turn this in. You already have the working app. But I think what we'll get through building these apps, that's why I said, if you want to do all of them, that's 5 apps. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We did the one for 2 already, the one for 3 already, the welcome app and the tip calculator. If you want to do the other 5, or if you want to do 3 or whatever, at a minimum we're doing 2. We're doing those 2 at a minimum. We're doing 4 and 8. The problem with 4 and 8 are neither one of them are GUI. Just so you know, they're both textual based. But they're 2 of the harder ones, and I think they're 2 of the ones you learn the most out of. So those are givens. So if nothing else, look at 5, 6, and 7. That flag quiz, the canon, and the doodles. And see which ones of those, or none, you want to do. All right? And I mentioned this to you before I started to go out here. To YouTube, and notice Dytel. Like I said, there's Java, there is a thing on the C book. I have no idea if they have anything Swift. All right, so there's some of their Swift stuff. There's our live lessons. Now, you're probably not going to get the whole thing in most of these. You're going to get snippets. But I will tell you, if you've never done this before, and he's not here, but Mike would tell you this too. I do a bunch of courses through Udemy, and I know I've mentioned that to you before. And the thing with Udemy, they've got a thing where they try to hook you. So if you pay for a couple courses, they start offering you a bunch of them for free. All right, thinking that they're kind of simple courses and you'll want the more advanced ones and you'll pay more. And I probably right now, I'll show you this. Again, probably more than you care about, but just so you see this. Am I in? No, I'm not. Okay. I don't know how I did this, but somehow when I got into this, I've got half my courses under my Charter account and half my courses under my Blackhawk account. And you talk about a cluster. And it's really hard to move stuff around in there. They don't like it for some reason. Let's see. My courses is what I want. Well, there's one I want to show you, but I don't remember if it's under here or under the other one. So you can see I'm taking a couple classes. This is the one. This guy, I would tell you, just say to you, if you ever want to take courses and you really want to learn something, maybe more than you learn in here, I don't know. This is a guy from England. His name is Rob Percival. And I've been taking a bunch of his classes online through Udemy. And he's out of England. You can tell by his accent. He's got his own hosting thing out there too. I thought of actually contacting him if the Site 5 stuff wouldn't have worked. I think we could have gotten a good deal because I've taken a bunch of classes through him. And I've also done, if you do a positive review on the class you take with him, he gives you an extra free year of service for hosting, which is pretty nice. But notice there's 162 things in here. Now, not all 162 of them are videos. All right, many of them are, but he goes through something and he gives you the code. All right, so what he did in here for Swift is he's got a thing in here there it is, cat years. So you put in something, so I just changed it around to dog years and made some other changes to it, and that's one of the ones that we're going to work on Thursday. So we're going to do that. Then he went in and he wrote a thing with prime numbers. So I went back and I didn't like the way he wrote it, so I rewrote it, and we're going to do that on Thursday. And I'm going to show you how to take something and take it and move it from not exactly move it, but for lack of better words, copy it from the playground into your code. All right, so you can see that. So that's the stuff we're going to do. And you can see in here, as it says, I'm about 40% of the way through here, 66 out of 162 lectures. The longest one that he's had in here so far has been a half an hour. I'd say the average size of one of his lectures are about 10 or 15 minutes. All right. But there's some really good stuff. This was not cheap. This was 199 bucks. I got it, it was on sale. It was actually originally $4.99. Then it went down to $1.99. And for one day only, it was $99. That's when I scarfed it. All right. All right. So that said, let's take a look at what's in Chapter 4. Now, I'm going to hopefully not embarrass myself, but I'm right here. So I want to do a file, and I want to do an import. I think it'll be Android existing code. Browse. Now I got to remember where I put it. Twitter searches. There it is. Copy. Finish. Like I said, I know that Travis had mentioned this before. Does everybody remember from last year, as soon as this comes in? If you haven't done what I'm about to tell you, make sure you do this by class on Thursday. And all kidding aside with talking about John and whatever, you want to go in and you want to do a file, and you want to do a switch workspace and see where your current workspace is. Because right now yours might be set to like C:users JWanda. You don't want it there because otherwise everything you save is going to technically be saved to his account. So there you go. So you'll want to make sure that you come in and do an other, and you come in here and either do it like this or browse and find it. Okay? Remember that when you're working on here, your desktop is on the D drive on your virtual. It still is. On the C drive is, I think at least, where he's either saved all of the actual software or else at least he's got links to it. But I think that's kind of where the virtual desktop lives, for lack of better words. So you don't want it to be C:, you want it to be D:. That's where your desktop is. And also make sure, because funky things can happen, after you've got it set up, make sure it's D:users, then your ID, desktop, and again, we talked about this last semester. I would suggest you come in here and create something like, create a folder with, I shouldn't have done that, but create a folder like, call it Android or something like that. Something that you don't have in there. If you say, well, I already got an Android, call it Android 2015. Yeah, whatever you want. And that's where I would save all my stuff if I were you. And again, you're all smart people. You've heard this before, but you will hear it one last time, and that is that when you are doing this stuff, remember, I cannot get to your virtual desktop. So if Teresa says, but Jeff, I had it done, and she never copies it either to her H drive or emails it to me, and the first year people, a lot more than you guys did, so many of them, well, I heard, that you're really a stickler for deadlines. I was wondering who they heard that from. They're all asking, they're all saying it's okay if we email stuff to you instead of putting it on our H drive, and I don't care. But you better zip it. All right? Oh, yeah. If you go here under Window and you go under Preferences, and what is it, Java? What's that? General. Yeah, Startup and Shutdown, and Workspaces. That's got all the existing workspaces. So you're going to have a bunch in there that'll say metadata and a bunch of other stuff and maybe some old ones. If you don't want them anymore, just highlight them. And then the remove thing, I'm not going to do that, but if I did that, you could remove them then. And people were doing it yesterday and weird things were happening. So I'd recommend that you click remove, then click apply, then click OK. Then double check it right away. Because if you remove everything that's in there, again, I'm not going to do that, but if you do, then when you come in and you do a file, you might want to do that first. John brought up a good point, because then when you go to switch workspace, all you'll see in there is other. It worked fine, I'd say, for 3/4 of the people. A couple people that just didn't work. I don't know what they did. Again, when people say this didn't work, why? Well, unless I'm watching you do it, and even if I watch you do it, it's possible that you hit a weird couple keys at the same time and don't think you did it or whatever. So, but go in there and change that too. All right, so let's see if we can bring this up. I don't know if I've ever opened one like this. So I've got it here. I know I can go into my source and I can open up. I can come in here and do this. We can do that and look at a little bit of the code. You can see this is where Jeff runs into problems. When he learns to do things like change font size, all right, because now it's probably a little bit too big. Why is your font size that big? Ask Twan. Okay? She didn't like it yesterday. She's like, and she's so nice. You can't say no to her no matter what she says. And then she moved up here, and she said no, that she didn't like sitting up there, so she moved back again. So I changed the size for her. Yeah, well, that's 14 point. I really should have just kept it. And maybe I'll reset it to 12. I don't know. Now, a couple things that are in here to remember from last time. Again, as I mentioned, this is that manifest. And if we go into here, there are settings in here that are going to affect the entire project. For instance, you can come in here and you can tell it that you want your project only to run in portrait mode or only to run in landscape mode. The default is to let them run in either mode. All right, and that's what we're going to do in the Twitter one, so I'm not going to change anything. And in fact, in the way it is set up for the Twitter one, I believe, is when you have it like this, it'll look a certain way, and if you do it like this, it'll look a little bit different. All right? Yes. Are you talking about at home? What virtual? I don't know. Oh, you mean you're on here? You mean under here, our Android Virtual Device Manager? Yes. And there may not be anything there, or there may be. In fact, I can look at mine, but I'd still suggest I'm going to get rid of that one and recreate it. Now, you might want to look at it first and edit it so you can write down on a piece of paper or whatever, or remember in your head what it was. But I'm going to create a new one. All right, just a couple things then. I don't even know if it pays to go into it today, but again, that's the manifest file. All right, as we go out, we start looking through it. There's our activity main. So sooner or later, it'll come back up, hopefully. But again, remember that it is possible that you can build a whole interface from here. Most people don't do it. People who are XML people might do it. All right, people who are really familiar and comfortable with XML might do it. Again, it says it's still loading. All right, so what we're going to do is we'll look at this running on Thursday, then we'll start building it as a class. But as we build it as a class, that's why, Mike, it'd be nice if possible if you could get a book. It sounds like everyone else has theirs. I'm not going to read to you, but there's going to be things in there that we're going to be going through. So this is it. So if, for instance, I put a Twitter command in here, right there. So I can put in stuff like from Dytel, and then I can click Dytel right here. And if I click the save, what it will do is two things. It'll create a tag that's called Dytel, and once I click on that tag, it'll show me all of the Dytel tweets. Does that make sense? All right. So, I remember when we did this a year ago, the Pope was taking a trip someplace, so I had that in there. I was checking, the Pope and a few other people. Now it might be France, or it might be anything that you want. All right? Or if you do follow something, you can put whatever you want. I don't really care. But the idea is we basically have a list here. All right? And what we'll be able to do is when we long click, or so push and hold down on here, we're going to have other options that are going to come up also. So we can take any of these that are in here that are highlighted, or if it'll be the first one by default, and we can come in and we can say edit it, we can say update it, or I'm sorry, update it, or we can insert another one and we can delete it. All right, when we delete, we'll ask first, are you sure you want to delete that? And the way that this is set up in here right now, if I decide in here, once I put my tag in, technically you can't change the tag. Did everybody hear what I said? And the reason for that is, what if I put Dytel here, and it came up and it had 10 million tweets, and I said, I just want the ones from this week. Then I could come in and add something in here and change that, but then change it from Dytel to Dytel Recent or something like that. That's the idea behind this. Yeah, I don't think it checks. So literally, if for some stupid reason, and don't ask me why I'd want to do this, but I think I could just I could call it Dytel and probably I think I can use the same name over again. It'd be really, really confusing. But I don't know if there's any code in there that checks for that, is what I'm saying. All right, there's some weird stuff about it. I know when I looked at it, there were a couple things in there that I thought were just kind of weird. All right, so if you look at it, there's really not a lot to building the interface. But what we'll talk about, as they mention in here, we want to support both portrait and landscape. We want to extend list activity. We want to enable users to interact via an image button, and it's not really that much of an image button. All right, we want to manipulate collections of data. We want to use shared preferences to store key value pairs of data associated with an app. Does that sound familiar? Does shared preferences sound familiar to something you've heard of in Swift, like dictionaries, which are key value pairs that we talked about last semester? All right. Use the shared preferences editor to modify those. Use an array adapter. Remember one thing about Java, all right? I'm asking you this question. Guess if you don't know. No punishment for wrong guesses. True or false? First of all, it's a two-part question. I can create a Java array that has a mixture of strings and floats and doubles and ints, etc. True or false? Correct. All right. Second, once I create an array in Java, I can change the size of it. True or false? They're both right. You have to use, or an array list is what you use in Java. So in this particular application, they're going to use an array list because the idea is you want to be able to show and have this list expand and contract. So if you're constantly tweeting something that's trending, what's trending today may not be trending in a week. You know, I was watching this show on the news last night when they were talking about it and saying, yeah, don't worry about this stuff in France because in 2 weeks everybody will have forgotten about it anyway because there'll be something new. And if you say, well, that's not true, think about it. When that second plane disappeared, the one that they found, then people were bringing up that Air Malaysia thing again. And I can't tell you the number of people that, yeah, whatever happened with that? Because people just forget about it because something else happens. In the same way, over time, your list of tweets is going to expand or contract. You know, the stuff you have in there will change. You might have people that you follow religiously. With an array list, by default, with most array lists, an array list starts out, it's got 16 members in it. Okay? As soon as you begin to fill up the 16th member, it automatically doubles. No. Okay, good question. It's still, in this language, the array has to be all of the same type. But what it can do is it can expand. Now, that's a good question. And just real quickly, just to tie into the next class, when you work with Objective-C, you can have arrays that do have ints and floats and doubles and strings. Swift doesn't let you do that. Swift, they have to all be the same type again. Swift calls itself, they try to be a type-perfect language. That's why in Swift, and it may sound real simple, but I still get hit with this all the time. Two things. First of all, if I do this, let's see. No, I don't want to. Let's show it to you like this. Yeah, okay. If age equals 21. If there's a single line in here, I want to say age plus plus, something like that. That's illegal in Swift. Why? Because even with one line in Swift, you need those. They require you to do that. You don't need this. You don't need this, but you need those curlies. They've just got some rules that they decided on, some things that you would have to do. And in order to be able to program, there's certain rules that you have to follow. There's already people out there trying to find ways to circumvent these rules. You know, because somebody always says, oh, I can figure out a way to do it. You don't have to do that. I don't know why people put a lot of energy and stuff into that, but some people do. All right, so I'm just going to stop here. What we'll do on Thursday is we're going to start going over this Twitter searches thing. All right, we're going to go over it. We'll start to build it. I'll talk about it some more first, and then we'll come in and we'll try to build it. Now, because we have a little bit of extra time and because I think that everybody just about is here, I just want to mention this, and I'm taping, so you all at least hear this. All right? and that is, you don't have to do this now, but I want everybody to see this. Virtually, not including Kelly, who's not here, but virtually everybody who's in this room is in the field study class. So if you go out there, you'll find 3 forms. And I don't care about the darn syllabus or the eval, but it's these 3 forms. This form right here, this one that says internship employee evaluation of employer evaluation of employee. All right. So Teresa's doing an internship at Taylor Company, and when she gets done, she has to give this to them. A lot of it is just checking yes and no. What the school is attempting to do is to build 1 or 2 forms, one for the student and one for the employer, that's going to be available sometime. I'm not sure when. But Carrie Osmond is doing that, and then everybody's going to have the same forms throughout the school. Now we're not required to do that. So there's a form there, the internship employer evaluation of employee, that you have to have the employer fill out. This tells what you have to do to finish the class. You have to give me a resume and a cover letter, and I'm going to rip them up. Some of the people in this room, I've helped you with resumes. Maybe you think I've hurt you, but at least I've tried to help you with resumes. All right? And I'll mark them up. You give me it electronically, I'll go and rewrite it. If you don't like it, it's your resume. Then don't change a thing. But I'm trying to show you what I think are more professional looking resumes. You have to also give me a cover letter. All right? Other than that, you have to take the other forms, that form that I just showed you and this one. This is where you log your time. And I trust people. And even that should be changed. It should be WAP anymore. But this in here has got the duties you're going to perform, and this is your log of the hours that you spent. You're supposed to spend a minimum of 72 hours. With some people in here, Zach, I would imagine, for example, here, Zach Heeg, that with all the work you've been doing at Data Dimensions, that's probably like 2 or 3 weeks of work. You know, so 72 hours, that's not a big thing. But that's the minimum number of hours. There is no maximum. I don't want to get 10 sheets from you that says you've done 10,000 hours. But if you've got a few hundred, you know, I've had people who have built websites for people from scratch, and one guy submitted 500 hours. All right, and he said I can quantify every single thing that I did, and I believed him, and it was a really good site too. All right, that's another thing that you should be thinking about is if, depending on what you're doing, if you did something where you made changes to a website or created a website, that again, when we're working with that DIP class, the Design and Implementation Projects class, when you're giving that presentation at the end of May, 4 months from tomorrow, all right, you might want to show that too. All right, we'll go over all this stuff again. All right, so that's everything. Okay, so that's everything for that class. Now, what we'll talk about in the next class is, again, we've got 4 different things that we can do, just so you know, for Swift. And this is how I'm going to start the next class. There's a couple people who aren't here now that might be here for the next class. I don't know. First thing that we can do, and again, every one of you got this sent to you. I've read the first 10 chapters in this. Beginning iPhone development with Swift, exploring the iOS SDK. It's a good book. It's not a great book. It's a good book. It's somewhere between good and very good. It's free. It's out there under that IT-ebooks, but you all have a copy on your H drive. I put it out there. It's the first thing we can do. Second thing we can do is we literally can just kind of do what we did last semester, and I can grab tutorials and stuff offline. I think that's the worst thing, because unless you've got tutorials written by the same person, people oftentimes do things very differently. But if you want to do that, we can do that. The third thing, again, that we can do is this is the same as your Android book. And, did you catch? I'll pass it around. No, you can't. And I'll pass it around. You can take a look at it. We can go, and that book we can order tomorrow. I tried sending an email to my rep, seeing if I could get a deal, and maybe he'd be nice because he screwed us on this other book. If he'd send me 15 copies. He kind of laughed and was like, no. Okay, and I think it's because, again, it's a new book. That's why I think he wouldn't do it. I don't think that he can make any deals or do anything. All right, so or we can wait, like I said, I've read both January 26th, February 1st, and February 15th for the actual book that I ordered for the class to come out. So we can do it any way. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through the appendix and the first chapter or two of this book that's right here, so you can see what it's like. All right, and you can say, that's not bad, or no, that stinks, or whatever. The tough thing is, we're going to have to make a decision fairly quick, and it's not like we're not going to go and do one for 3 or 4 weeks. Now let's go back to the other one. No, I'm not going to do that. All right, so that's how we're going to start up the next class. That's about all I had.